right, welcome to the live stream. Let me just do a little bit of housekeeping whilst I'm here, just to make sure that everyone can get through. And I've just got to post on all the other channels so that everyone knows that we're going live. There we go. And just so you can see, come here, come here, come here. Good boy. And here we have my good boy, Tali. You're okay. Come on. Down you go. Good boy. Please don't jump up. Right, we're just going to do a little check of testing cameras. If we can swap to our desk view. So we are just going to move that across to there. And figure out if that will work for the stream. Right, let me see if we can get desk view on. Not through here. Okay, right. So sticking to center stage. In fact, we should be able to go straight on to regular. So, please mind the shaky cam. I'm just figuring out how I can jump between like a desk view, which is what this is. That's really weird. It like auto corrects the angle on it. Tell you what, let's just come back up to me. There we go. So, got you up there. It won't let me jump between like the phone and this. So, ta-da! We have the Protoss Starter Set. If you haven't seen the unboxing video, go check that out afterwards. This is fairly jam-packed with Protoss. It's not as jam-packed as that box there. That is insanely well packed up. But certainly it has quite a lot of miniatures. We've also completed our first miniature so far. So just getting these out of the way. Whack that up there. Hide Horace Lupercal. Don't need him. It's a shame I can't swap. So if you can see here, this is like the top-down camera. So if I could swap to that, you could just see everything down there. It'd be brilliant. But we'll try and figure out something. Yeah, in terms of like sprues though, if you can see these, they might look like they've not been touched, but these have all been primed. So we'll just quickly turn on that light there. We'll just go a bit more golden. There we go. So you can see there, all that metallic fleck in there. This was Colourforge Gauntlet armor, I believe it was. So essentially today, I've got about an hour or so, and I want to kind of update the channel, but also, you know, build a few miniatures whilst we're here. So I will try and do that as high up here as I physically can, just so that you guys can see it. But I just want to share with you guys, here we have one of our little, what they call them, the sentry shield dome drone things. Should get that into focus. So the texture on the bases themselves, you don't really need to go to a massive deal of like completely retexturing the base. You can just whack some sand onto here. Sorry, you don't need to whack sand onto here. You can just paint it in a sandy color, dry brush over it with something brighter, and stick on something like tufts, and you have like a nice little base on here. We've done 2 separated burnt tufts, and the idea behind that is basically the little energy shield has burnt them to a crisp. Please do not try that at home. It causes big fires. Next little update that I want to share as well, if any of you haven't been on the channel before, we have Zeratul. And this is his clear miniature. So we have managed to paint the clear plastic using, I can't remember the name of the contrast now, but contrast paint mixed roughly 50 to 2/3-ish with water. So a relatively thin contrast. And you just want to apply on a reasonably thick layer. It doesn't want to adhere, or it sort of wants to pool into all of the into the recesses, but it doesn't want to go near any of the top points. It's sort of that, trying to think of the best way to describe it. It's like trying to put water onto like wax. It doesn't want to sit there, but it does go on, and you end up with this really nice green. And I don't know whether you can see that, but the green kind of punches through the clear like plastic. So it's a pretty cool technique. Awesome miniature. We have done the base on him. We do actually have some high resolution shots that we have put onto our community posts. So always check out the community posts. Anytime we do any sort of painting challenges, things like that, I like to make sure that we put high resolution videos in the community posts. That way you can just go on there, see everything. We currently have promo Zeratul all in black. He obviously has a lot of work to be done on him, but we're going to go for that drab purple, all the browns. Even the golds are going to look very battered and weathered and worn down. I think the purpose of Zeratul is he looks like his armor. It's like a space marine that's never had anyone fix his armor in 10,000 years. It's going to look absolutely decrepit. That's kind of the goal with him, is that he looks battered and bruised, and yeah, that's kind of where we're going. Now, I know that you're not here to watch me waffle about Zeratul. We're here to build things. So basically, I mean, if you're in chat now, if you know the Starcraft miniatures, then let me know what you want to see me build first. We have Artanis, we have the pylon, which I think is a really cool centerpiece. Any of the big base stuff, be it the sentry, dome, or the pylon, the bases aren't going to be glued on. Aside from the one test base that we've done for the other sentry, everything else is getting painted for a painting challenge, which will be out for Friday, all things being well. So if you guys want to see that, hit a like, and obviously hit the little bell notification, all the YouTube pleasantries. Yeah, whatever you want to see first. We have sentries, we have adepts, we have 2 sprues for adepts. We have Artanis, the sentry. Obviously, one of Artanis's bases has been used for promo Zeratul. So, idea with that is I didn't want to leave him sort of like on a plain 40mm base. I was going to work with another resin dealer to sort of get something a little bit more elaborate, but actually I think that perfectly fits in with the theme of StarCraft. So it's not a bad shout to stick with that. Sentries have only got 1 sprue, so they should be easy to build. I lied, they don't have 1 sprue, they have 2 sprues, but in terms of like the opaque plastics, they have 1. Zealots, these are, I do believe, the exact same sprue. Obviously, they come originally in packs of 3. I think if you buy these in their own separate set, this will just be split in half. Like, wow, that. So if this was GW, you could snap that super easily. This being Archon, that did not just want to snap. These are actually quite thick at the joints. But yeah, Zealots, they clearly come in this half pack. You have 3 different domed shields. Again, I kind of want to put them on after we've done all the bases and stuff like that, so it has a little bit of base underneath. All right, I'm just reading the comments now. Vote for pylon. I'm really on the fence to buy. Will this be? Yeah, it will be successful. So they've sold, I think it was 1/3 copies for the initial wave. Now, is that anywhere near the amount that you get with Games Workshop? Absolutely not. But you certainly have enough miniatures and enough people playing the game across the globe. In the next couple of months, obviously the US is still waiting for shipping, or they're waiting for deliveries. Australia and New Zealand are waiting for deliveries. I think the Asia started getting deliveries about 2 weeks ago. So yeah, there's places all over the world that are all getting their deliveries. 1 second, I don't know if you can hear that, but this is literally my cat shouting at me, so I just want to show him off. Out of the way. It disconnected the camera for a second. All right, so the setup for this, if anyone's wondering, we literally have MacBook down here. You guys are up there on the camera. We just had an event yesterday with 7 people, most of which didn't have their minis for even 1 week. So they built that up really quickly. We just move this cable because my cat is really loud at the minute. Don't know if you can hear him. He hasn't really got anywhere to jump up. Right, just going to get a build guide up. We'll start with the pylon then. I think the pylon's probably quite a popular choice anyway. It's like one of the most iconic buildings and certainly one of the most necessary buildings in the StarCraft universe. Come on, Tally. There you go. Yes, you're going to have to go out because you keep shouting at me. Good boy. He's a brilliant cat, but he's also bonkers. We'll just try and lay that down there. Hey, lots and lots of StarCraft stuff here. As a newbie, let's have a look. Is it easy to play? As far as I'm aware, this is one of the easier games to play. Not saying it's like not lacking complexity. All of these war games have some form of complexity built into them, so they're not just boring. But in terms of the way it plays, it's got a faster pace to it than something like Warhammer 40k, which you have big battles, but you also have to wait a long time for your opponent basically to finish doing his movement, doing his attacks, doing his charges, all that kind of stuff. This is alternating gameplay. So I go with a squad, you go with a squad. Once we all finish moving, we start going into like an attack phase, and then you do an attack, I do an attack. There is more complexity to it, but the rule book that we have just down here, ta-da, this basically goes through a scenario of how to do the game. They go through an actual game and they break down everything that's being done. So it's a useful guide. This, by the way, you don't need a physical copy. If you want to, I think they're selling it for $9.99 when they release Wave 2, which is at the end of the month. So I think 29th of August, you can go get your Starcraft miniatures for Wave 2, and I think they're doing all the Wave 1 reprints as well. You can get this online. So you can just go onto the Starcraft TMG website. I think it has a subheading for rules. So you just go onto there. You've got full access to the entire core rule for the game. And if you have Warhammer miniatures, again, just proxy. Zealots, for instance, are on 40mm bases. Almost everything else is on a 32mm base. Let's have a look. I think that one came specifically with the 2-player Founders set, but it will be available separately, obviously. Let me just catch up with messages. If you have zero experience with miniature games, then you have some learning to do. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you know, you don't have to go into this being absolutely perfect. You also don't have to go into this doing a full battle. The way that I learned Warhammer back in the day was like you just get a few squads, a couple of squads, play out with a couple of squads, see if you enjoy it. If you can take a screenshot of that, if it's helpful to you, let me just see if it will zoom in on there. That's a rules reference guide for you. Just try and get you my hand out of the way. Hang on, other way around. There we go. So if you can screenshot like the rules reference, just try and get the glare out. And then on the back, you have like a keyword reference as well. Something like that might be really useful to you. It's a bit hard. I have to work in reverse. So it's like twist it and turn it. It's a bit more difficult. But yeah, if that's useful, then by all means, go through that. Just find the build guide. So we've got the little build guide here. Again, everything to do with the Archon Studio way of making games. It seems like you can get all of the build guides online, which I kind of wish that GW did a bit more, because if there's anything wrong, they can update them there as well. As far as I'm aware, there is a Protoss miniature. I think it's number C, so like the 3rd miniature in the build guide. The arms are the other way around in terms of the poses. So aside from that, it's not actually a major issue. I'm just going to do a little set dressing there. Got like a little StarCraft wall. I'm really in between a few games. Warhammer, Marvel, Moonstone, or StarCraft. I never played but want to start. And StarCraft being new for everyone is kind of cool. It really is. I think Warhammer is the most adopted game in the world in terms of wargaming. So if you just want something that you can go to your local friendly game store and just play with a group of people, Warhammer's a good bet. If you want something that is less cost intensive, then I'd recommend something like 40k Kill Team. But StarCraft in particular, it's up there with that kind of like pedigree of this is a game that kids in the 90s remember playing as they were growing up. And what a game it was. Like, this and Dawn of War was my childhood. So I absolutely love StarCraft. Just to show you things that you can't see in view here, we've got things like the field manual here. If you want to see some examples, we have the Terran and Zerg lore primer on the channel. So if you go down to the videos after the live stream's finished, which we should be running up to about 7:30. We haven't actually built anything yet, but hey, it's kind of fun to talk through. Go look at these. There's a load of different examples of the miniatures that exist in the world. So you'll see cool things. If you like the look of them, then, I mean, if you play StarCraft as well, you know what units exist in the world. But if not, have a look through something like the field manual or through that video. I go for a ton of different examples, like the Terrans, the Zerg. Not done the Protoss video yet. And I also go through some of the artwork as well. If it resonates with you, yeah, it's an awesome game. You're going to love it. If it doesn't quite resonate with you, don't worry. You can have a look at what games you think best suit you. Obviously, Warhammer has the most material of literally anything. Where did I put my build guide? I put it down somewhere. It's around here. There we go. So I think we're going to start, and you're a massive Blizzard fan. Yeah, StarCraft is perfectly set for you. Archon Studio is also very good at making miniatures. Games Workshop have incredibly well-detailed miniatures, don't get me wrong. And the Terrans are a bit like the Space Marines. The miniatures are well-detailed, but at the same time, most of them is covered in smooth armor panels. Whereas like your Zerg, like you can see like all the little chunks out of like the chitinous armor. It's really well done. Really well thought out. I'm just going to have a quick drink because it's thirsty work talking to myself. Not to myself, to you guys, but you know, leading the conversation. I'm collecting Tau around 16 years, but I've never played a game. But with StarCraft, I totally will. My Zeratul arrived today. Congratulations on your Zeratul arriving. Give me 1 second. For all of you that are like just wondering where I'm going, I'm getting some Tau stuff. Like 1 Tau stuff, maybe 2. It'll make sense in a second. Give it a moment. All right, so eventually we will actually go about like putting on a little showcase thing somewhere around here. This is only a small room, so we don't have masses of space. And if you ever see the videos that I post, I'm not currently in the center cam mode. This here is my voice booth. So I'm also an actor and voice actor. So I do loads of little bits and everything from video games to animation stuff in there. So all that kind of fun stuff, but it takes up quite a bit of room that I'd otherwise have. Right, miniatures that we have that you can have a quick look at. So we have a Ghost Keel. If any of you want to look at Warhammer, Tau are pretty cool. They tend to get quite a bit of hate. I think it's just because they're awesome. People can't really take that. But also you get something like the Storm Surge, which is next to my head, like the size of my head. To put Zeratul on there, just as an example, this is quite a large miniature. So when you think StarCraft will be releasing things like the Thor, yeah, we're going to have some really cool large miniatures for the StarCraft universe. Now, they do their live Ask Me Anythings, and people have tried to pressure Jarek into confirming that he will make a battlecruiser. He's yet to do it, but who can make a StarCraft game and not make the battlecruiser or the carrier? The Leviathan might be a bit silly, but hey, why not make it? The mothership might be a bit silly as well. Right, we're just going to move our build guide onto the pylon. I was going to say Nexus. I don't know why I'm saying Nexus. That is not what I meant whatsoever. So again, the actual pieces for the pylon. I don't know if you can see the build on there. Actually looks relatively simple too. Hey, you popped into my feed and figured I'd pop in and say hi. Always happy to support other mini painting creators. Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, we actually have... I think we've got quite a reasonable amount of StarCraft content at the minute. We've got 2 lore primers for the Terran, the Zerg, obviously the pre-order video and stuff like that, but that's just outdated. Just focus on like the unboxings that are out at the minute. If you're brand new to Wargaming, we also have a build guide for StarCraft, and we have a more comprehensive guide that will tell you everything like what these things are called that hold all of your components and these little gates that come off of them. That's a Warhammer 1, but it's applicable to literally everything. I mean, you know, all of these are made with die-cast tools, so nothing is different from, you know, Warhammer to StarCraft. They're all made on massive tools. There are different ways to make miniatures, but this is the best way to make mass-manufactured miniatures. Right. So here we have the base of our pylon, or the components of our pylon. And somewhere on here we have the plastic for it too. Where is it? It's hard to miss because it's massive. There. Ta-da. Remember that your camera's over there. Subscribed. Hopefully you can get those 40 more subs and hit 1K soon. Yeah, 1K is probably not going to take me very long, given that this is a very popular game and everyone seems to be really into it. And the recent Warhammer videos have been doing really well too. We're actually at a point where I'm hitting the first part of YouTube's partner program. So I'll have, you know, let me just unplug that because that's making noise that it shouldn't need to do. So I'm going to hit a point where we have, you know, live streams with, you know, memberships. So if you want exclusive access to the Discord, at the minute, the only way to do that is through Patreon, which is linked down below. But if any of you wanted to support me and just stay on the YouTube stuff, that's where the membership's going to come in quite handy, I think. Super chats and stuff like that for support, brilliant. If it comes to questions, unless we get really, really busy in there and, you know, it would help you stand out, then for the most part, you can just ask a question and I'm there to answer it. Again, I have about 25 years of hobby experience, so I'm quite comfortable with doing all of these things. Like, none of this is a surprise to me. If you are building your pylon, by the way, I just want to say it's probably easy, quite easy to show it. If you can see the actual plastic, oh, that's hard to work in reverse. There's loads of little sections that hang off, and these are where sort of all of your points are going to connect onto all of your opaque plastics. So when you're clipping these, if you're clipping, you know, plastic sprues for the first time, just take a second, go and look at the guide that you get and make sure that you're not clipping off anything that should belong there, because it would be quite easy to do. So we have quite a few comments to get through. Collecting I'm painting mine in the same scheme as you. Yeah, the ochre scheme is like my favorite. Again, I think I was collecting Tau back in, would it have been 3rd edition? It might have been 3rd edition. It might have been 4th. I can't entirely remember. That part of my life is quite blurry. I was tiny at that point. I think I might have just been 10-ish. So, you know, not super, super young, but certainly not, you know, a matured adult. Because obviously everyone knows a matured adult would have bought loads of orcs, which is what I want to do now because orcs are freaking awesome. Orcs, by the way, if you want to look at, like, if you're an orc player and you want something that's StarCraft related, Terrans. They are literally the cowboys / you know, punk rockers of the StarCraft universe. They are very, you know, silly in a serious way. And then there's like sub-factions of them that are like, you know, more professional than others, is a good way to put it. I think I hurt myself because I took a 3-year hiatus before returning So YouTube counted that against me. Been doing this consistently for about a year at this point. I'm just at 115 subs. Go have a look at a YouTube sort of like add-on tool called vidIQ. It's very useful. Go watch their channel as well. They have a YouTube channel. Don't get me wrong, not everything they say is applicable to wargaming, but in terms of like just a general way to build your channel, it might be useful to you. Again, I come from an acting background, so talking to camera, talking to you lot, talking to myself, it's surprisingly second nature to me. I don't know if that means that I'm weird. Actually, I lie. I do know that that probably does make me weird. But that's my choice of existence. So can't complain too much about it. It's got me quite a lot of cool jobs. Speaking of which, towards the end of the year, I might be able to speak about a video game that I was in. But I can't speak about it yet. But yeah, at some point, you guys will find out that I'm doing some very cool projects and auditioning for some even cooler stuff that I can't talk about ever. But yeah, the acting side of life is really, really cool. Oh, I find it cool and enjoyable. But I'm currently doing shows this month. So all of the StarCraft stuff being delayed by... Dude, not weird. No, not weird is boring. Yeah, you're right. Like ADHD brain, undiagnosed or not, that makes for interesting personality traits. Right, so here we have, for anyone that is interested in the building at this point, we have both halves of our pylon. They go together in one way and one way only. There's no way to like get it upside down or anything like that. We have here Tamiya extra thin cement. With Zeratul's promo miniature, his plastics were a bit harder. They started adhering in about 3 seconds and then were pretty reasonable at about 10 seconds. This stuff, or this plastic, is supposed to be a little bit softer and a bit easier to work with. So we're actually just going to knock off a little bit there so we don't have too much excess. And you just feed it into a gap. And it does what is called the capillary effect, which, as we discussed with someone on the Archon Discord, is not actually to do with biology. It is just the capillary effect being a physical thing in which a thin liquid goes into lots and lots of gaps, and it just works its way through the material. So it makes your life really easy in building these miniatures, because they just, you hold two pieces together, poke this through, let it set. So we're going to hold this for somewhere around the region of about 15-20 seconds. I want this to be as tight as is possible. We don't want the gaps to start like reopening. So we're just going to let this melt together. And your plastic glue is essentially acetone. Or the actual like working element of it is acetone, and it just melts plastic to pieces. So you end up with this tacky substance that adheres to each other, or both halves adhere to each other. Let me just catch up with comments again, because I'm sure you guys don't want me to actually be talking to myself about building stuff, and we'd rather have a conversation. My main arm, words are hard. My main army is orcs, but my growth on Instagram led me to meeting goals, which means I now have more points of Imperial Knights than orcs. Yeah, so I have probably about 10,000 points of Warhammer 40k from previous to 6th edition. So I'd never had orcs, but I had Guard, I had Space Marines, Blood Angels, and Ultramarines. I have Tau, big army of Tau, which actually required virtually nothing buying to refresh it other than, you know, the big mechs. Orcs are my latest army, and I think I found my tribe with orcs. So obviously with StarCraft and things like that, I'm going to be keeping on making content as we go, because I like the game. It's part of my childhood. With the Warhammer stuff, we have new orcs coming out probably towards the end of this month, beginning of September. So I need to get through this stuff so that I can get on with that. I'll show you it's kind of a bit of a diorama, but this is one of the setups that I did for one of the photos that you can find in the community tab post, or the post tab in my channel. So just setting this up, having a bit of fun, you know, got Gazkul in the corner. Ironically, though, I've done this and I have no room to like move anything. I haven't put away my Orc army yet. But that's just kind of a problem for another time. Right. I've just finished assembling all the Terran miniatures for my All-in Army bundle, and Protoss is next on my list. I think you're going to enjoy them. I've painted or I've sprayed all the opaque sprues in Gauntlet armor from Colourforge. The idea is, I mean, if you look at like Zeratul, for instance, I want to retain that glow effect blade. So I want it to have the clear plastic and just tint it. Now, when it comes to these blues are a really nice shade of blue, and I think that's a very Protossy blue. So we're not going to go crazy with this. We don't need to add a mass amount of contrast. I'll have a play, because if you look at the Zealots, if you got, which kit is it? That kit, the Protoss Starter, you get 8 blades. Is it? Or a bit more? 2, 4, 6, no, 8. 8 blades, you only use 6 of them. So you have a rough idea, you have 2 spare blades per squad of Zealots. So you have 2 that you can mess around with, whether that's, you know, trying to test if, you know, various contrasts will give you various effects or not. So I'm going to have a good play about of that. Cheers, Pat. Let's just check this is cured off nicely. There, that's adhered well. Assembling our Terran miniatures. Yeah, so when it comes to the 2-player starter set, I'm working every weekday from like, I leave the house at 8 o'clock and I'm not back till 6-ish. So I'm doing lots of shows, lots of creative work. It's a bit mentally draining. So I come here and I want to enjoy myself, but I want to make these. So live streams are working really well for the idea of building my miniatures, but there are so many miniatures in that box. And ideally, I just need the Protoss ready for Thursday. So that's going to be the priority, getting the Protoss done. We might have another live stream Wednesday or so as an update. But that box set may end up being like a weekend job that I just get a load done. The videos that we're going to make for the 2-player set with the Terrans and the Zerg is going to be different to what we're going to do with the Protoss. Because the Protoss are smaller, I have more time. Got a day off on Thursday. We're going to do a 12-hour painting challenge to try and get everything done. Now, minus 1 sentry dome, because I had to do a little testing on there. So that should be all good. That stuff being so much, I don't have the time this month to be able to actually do the 48-hour painting challenges that I would do with something like the Space Marines or the Orcs. So we're going to do basically, paint guides. So we'll have, a few ways to paint your Terran Marines. Because obviously this hobby is bringing in quite a lot of new people. So if you've never painted a miniature before, never built a miniature before, we obviously have build guides up already, including like a comprehensive one for it's aimed at Warhammer, but it's applicable to everything. But in terms of paint guides, if you just want basic inspiration of how to paint Terran Marines, we have it. And moreover, I have all the inspiration and a ton of artwork so that we can go through, how these should be painted up in a nice way. You have, I don't know if you all know the lore of StarCraft. You've got like mercenaries, like war pigs and stuff like that. Oh, that sleeve gets in the way. You get stuff like that are just a bit silly and crazy, but it's good inspiration of how to paint your Terrans. Like, for the most part, they're shown as being quite gruff, gruff, bit chipped away with their armor and stuff like that. Everything's in a state of mild disrepair, because I don't think the Terrans really care about their Marines. Let's catch back up on comments. I have to remind myself. I often have to remind myself of the time to grow as part of me wants to rush, since content creation is the closest thing I can get to a job to my disabilities. Okay, I understand. Because different situation, but as an actor, we need free time to free up time for projects that come up. So again, if I do a 9-to-5 job, I would miss out on the video game that I just did, or some of the animation projects that I've gone for. All these kind of things where you need to be, a full-time working actor, but without the full-time commitments, and you still need to earn money. So YouTube for me is a way for me to not have to do some of the jobs that I have to do to survive, but I can still act and do all that kind of stuff that I enjoy. So yeah, I understand entirely. In terms of your content creation, have a look at what makes you happy, what you find fun, and play about the concept. Every video that you make, just try and get a little bit better with the way that you edit, the way that you film. It's difficult to explain because it's I've had people have asked me how to explain photography, for instance, and it's a huge subject. There's so much to learn, but just play about, see what works for you, enjoy the process, and yeah, the more you do it, the better you'll get. Obviously, experience will help, but research whatever you can, especially if you have a bit of free time. That's always useful. I plan on getting Starcraft minis when they become available in places like Amazon. I would hold off from the Amazon idea for now. I'd stick to your local game stores because I think Amazon is going to be maybe a couple of years down the line. They want to avoid that until basically the last possible moment where they need to push up sales a bit. So you'd end up going that path, and I think you'd end up losing quite a lot of time that you could have just been enjoying the hobby. Certainly in terms of content stuff, this is a great game to come on board and actually, build miniatures for, film it and enjoy. Because I think there's a lot of new people coming. Tint the plastic, then add paint to where the light would hit the surrounding surfaces. The problem is, tinting it is great because you get all of the natural reflection that you would get from any form of light source around it. Does it always look perfect? No. Does it look great at times? Absolutely. It is dependent on the lighting around you. So, again, you look at clear Zeratul. I'll just see if I can whack him in front of my face. So there, his blade almost looks neon on camera. In real life, it doesn't quite look neon. It's a bit darker. But certainly, his miniature, that glow pierces through the rest of it. But it doesn't look... I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. It doesn't look comical. If you try and do a glow effect using just opaque paints, it's tricky to make it look certainly to get that glow effect to it, that neon sort of effect is nigh on impossible without having, absolutely perfect techniques. And certainly airbrushes and neon paints would help. But yeah, it's a lot of effort where something like just applying a layer of contrast on with obviously thinned down, roughly 50-50 if you didn't hear me from the start of the stream, but closer to 2/3 is also useful. Right, let's go on. The main reason for doing the Terrans first is because they looked like they'd be the most time consuming. Did you find that they were the most time consuming? For me, I think both the Protoss and the Zerg I can see being more time consuming, but the way that I'm painting them is probably the reason why. So with the Zerg Queen, for instance, and even the Zerglings, anything that's got any of the clear plastics to it, I'm going to be painting all of the Zerg sprues in grey seer. So it's a near white, but it's a light grey. But it means that I can put contrast paints on top of that, have the colours that I want, whether it's pink, whether it's brown. Is not going to affect the way that I can paint this miniature down the line, but it does mean that all my clear plastics remain clear and I can tint them, do whatever I want with them. So if you were to build up the miniatures and then prime them, you lose your clear plastics. Apart from Zeratul, which I'd built him up, again, racing against time, then realized that I couldn't do anything with his blade. And then I remembered to have some tape. So I had to tape that up just so it didn't get coated in black. Right. I'm going to go full color shift, metal paints with both Terran and Protoss, glossy black primer, color shift paints, some highlights and shading. Then again, I'm not a good painter, but the airbrush helps. The only way that you can really get better at painting, yes, learning techniques, thinning paints, wet palettes, all this kind of stuff. Airbrushes are useful, but also work on your edge highlighting. Brush control means so much to improving the way that you paint, regardless of whether you've got an airbrush or not. So for me, I don't have an airbrush. Again, I only have, this relatively small space. It's not crazy. I mean, I've got, was it about 3.5 meters? Oh, hey, all right there. How you doing, Jack? So yeah, in terms of space in here, we don't have the world's amount of space. We do have like double windows, so we could have a compressor, but they're loud. And then yes, you'd have an airbrush, and you could do certain things with airbrushes. For me, even though it takes longer, being able to do like gradients with a brush, but then having like the skill, the patience to edge highlight quite finely, I think that's worth its weight in gold. Certainly more than airbrushing, because airbrushing, I've seen a lot of people in the Warhammer world, they'll spray in the correct gradient. So like they'll have a red on the top, and underneath they'll have like a purple. So you have like the gradient from red to like that bluish hue. It looks great, but they then don't hit that with any form of highlight. So you don't have sort of the intensity of the reflections or the glossiness of the ceramite. So it's always worth, even though you might not start particularly great at it, build up on your brush skills, get better with your dexterity. And then when you've got to a point in life where you might take 6 months, you might take a year, it might take 2 years, doesn't matter. You improve with every miniature. In the same way that my first YouTube videos were probably rubbish. You can actually see that. It's the Ultramarines one at the very beginning. So yeah, in terms of like trying something new, don't expect to be great at it at the start. You build up these things, you get better and better with time, and at the end of it, you feel like you've gone through a journey and you've learned how to problem solve. So, oh, hello, Andy. I'm too scared to use my airbrush still. Yeah, I mean, if I had one, I would use it more often, certainly for base coating, because I think that is one of the things it's really good at, especially if you have sort of a decent airbrush that doesn't leave too much texture. I think with the rattle cans, I do a lot of rattle canning miniatures, and 1 in 10 times you end up with coats that are too thick, or they have like this weird texture to them that is counterintuitive to what you actually want to do. So in terms of my Heresy Legions, my Blood Angels, some of those come out really chalky, and sometimes the paint's a bit thick. And we're not talking about, I'm feathering the spray. So it's like a light spray with movement. So it's just misting on a layer at a time. But what ends up happening with some of the sprays is they go on really thick. It's like melted chocolate on there. It's just a mess. So you lose a bit of that detail, which is frustrating, because Citadel paint, certainly not cheap. The Colour Forge ones that we've used for the Protoss has gone on really fine. It's also left almost a bit like having what I'm looking for, like having a shade paint. So there are some areas where it's a bit thicker and the gold is a little bit richer, almost like it's gone on too thin, but it's a metallic, so you kind of expect some little shenanigans like that. Funny enough, that's all we built so far in this build stream. But actually, I kind of just prefer talking to you all as well. So any questions that you have, by all means, ask away. Again, I've been painting on and off for roughly 25 years. I had it had been 2012-ish, 2013-ish to about 2021. It's 9 years, but I've been painting since I was about 10, 12, somewhere around there. So I built up all of my motor skills quite early on. So for me, things like color science and, techniques of what brushes to use, how thin to use paint, stuff like that, I can do most of it just by eye and sight and just looking at things and going, that color, I know how to mix that. For everyone else that's coming into this, especially with StarCraft, coming into it from a new perspective, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. But again, I think it's important that we all remember to play It should be an enjoyable hobby. Certainly don't go out there going, my first miniature has to be Golden Demon standards. Just have fun with it. Have fun painting. And I think if I can do anything with my channel, it's to make more people have fun painting instead of going, my squad has to be the best looking thing in the world. It has to be everything that I see on Instagram. None of that is realistic. None of it will make you happy. It certainly doesn't make me happy, like in the acting world, to compare myself to others. So it shouldn't do in the painting world. It's all creative endeavors. What you do is your art. It's perfectly valid however you paint things. And if you want to improve things, if you want to steal techniques, do that. Steal from my channel, steal from anyone else's channel. Doesn't matter. As long as you have fun and you create the kind of things that make you happy, that's all the painting side is about. If you don't like painting whatsoever and you don't want to try it, fair enough. Again, something as simple as just base coating these in a gold color and quickly getting a technique off of the internet, whether it's me or anyone else, of how to just put a shade onto them. Add a little bit of depth to your miniatures without doing anything. It's virtually no effort. So there's certain ways that you can cheat the system and have a lot of good results for minimum effort. In fact, if Andy's still here from Glass Half Dead, have a look at some of his, not his Zerg, I mean, yes, his Zerg. Have a look at how he's done some of his StarCraft miniatures as well. Because again, they were done in a time, so what am I looking for? Time constraint. 1 second, figuring out a word here. My brain does this at times. I go on a bit of a journey. He did things in quite a quick time with decent results. That's the words I was looking for. And also struggled to kind of coat the clear plastics in a way that you can work with them afterwards. Yeah, your stuff isn't terrible. It really isn't. Again, through the acting side of life, the amount of people that I find, and I say acting, what I mean is all creative endeavors kind of come down to the same thing. And certainly English people, more so than I'd say Americans, seem to be really self-deprecating. We never sing our own praises, which I think is ridiculous because, you can be a very talented person and still be, a nice, normal, humble person, Andy. So, yeah, you can still be good at things. I liked your miniatures. And again, even though painting isn't your favorite thing, if you wanted to, you could go back to your miniatures and it wouldn't really be too much work to improve them in little ways that might make a little difference to how you perceive them. But you also don't have to. It doesn't really matter. I think they look good. You've got the right sort of colors with like the Protoss skin, even in the metallics. It's fantastic. Right, let's go back through some of the comments. I'm doing art my entire life, so the principles I've had for a while started mini painting a few years ago. Yeah, it's all applicable, And again, when it comes to you creating videos as well, lean on the experiences that you've had in life. Just because you're doing like miniature gaming doesn't mean that the, artwork that you've done in the past isn't valid. We kind of work in very similar spheres regardless. If you're good with like color recipes, share those color recipes that work for you. Again, not everything is going to be like the most mass appealing video, but it doesn't matter. You create what you enjoy and then people will enjoy it because you're enjoying it as well. Certainly a good way to live. If you're wanting to do this for a living, it's certainly a road that is unpredictable. You can't control much of it. So the most important thing is have fun making videos. Have fun building a community. I found certainly the thing that I've enjoyed the most with the YouTube channel growing is just having this sense of community. Again, if you have any miniatures that you want to show off, I have a community tab. One of the best things that I found recently, and it was from one of the StarCraft videos, was someone went, oh yeah, I can post a thing on your community tab. Like, yeah, go for it. We have loads of little, people just putting in photos of the miniatures that they're working on, their work in progresses. It's case. It's like having a private Instagram. So by all means, please use things like that. Equally, if you're working on anything and you want to show it off on this channel, get onto that community tab, show it off. I'll be there talking about it, and it gets shared to a wider audience as well. So if you're making content, then you might find it useful as well. What else have we got? Airbrushing is kind of cheating, though. Do you know what? It's not. It's only as much cheating as me rattle canning this rather than painting it by hand is. Again, it's, for me, airbrushing is prep work rather than the end result on a miniature. But I'm willing to spend, 4 or 5 hours on a Space Marine, where some people might look at a Space Marine and go, I don't want to spend any more than, 30 minutes on it. So it's kind of what you want out of the hobby. For me, I want my Blood Angels to look absolutely incredible. The reds that I paint have so many stages to them, certainly to create that sort of nice gradient, that try to remember the correct word for it, volumetric highlighting. I think if Andy is still there, he might have thrown up a little bit. I apologize. Right, editing a video. Good chat. Yeah, take care. Take care, Andy, and enjoy your editing. It takes me a lot of time, so I imagine it takes you quite a lot of time as well. Cheers for joining us. That's another thing as well, Coffee and Hobby. So some of the things are obviously when you're making a channel, making videos, it's this. It's working to camera. It's understanding kind of like good framing. I'm not going to say this is good framing. The camera that you're seeing is usually here, and hence this whole section of wall here is usually me. So if you go back to some of my videos, you'll see that you have all of these photos sort of framing me. At the minute, we just kind of filled some space with some Starcraft stuff. And if I stand here, everything seems well framed in the background. There's so much that you can work on, but when it comes to things like editing, I don't script my videos. And again, I have years and years of improv experience. I work in a way that I can just waffle for hours. I know enough about the subject that I don't really need to, well, sometimes it helps to prep. But also, if you're filming a video that you're editing, you're not live, you can just go back, take a pause, find out some information, go edit it, have, the right information presented. But unless you're doing something like telling the rules of a game that you're not familiar with, and you need like a script so that you broke everything down, then yeah, have a story in mind. So when I'm editing my videos, I cut down some of the waffle that I, end up going on that sort of a circle. I mean, you can hear it here. I talk for hours. So try and keep the momentum going. Try and enjoy the process, but also try and tell a story. So we'll leave the YouTube stuff aside now. We'll get back into the things that actually make us happy about the hobby. And stay hydrated. Again, as a voice actor, I use my voice a lot. And today I've used my voice a lot. I've been a pirate the entire day. So I've been a Cornish pirate. So I've been talking like this for the last, pretty much 6 hours straight. So yeah, if you want a video with me talking like this, tough, not doing it. Right. Let's go back through. Don't be afraid to use the airbrush. You'll screw up the first few tries. At least I did. My ultras had a beating, but at least it taught me how to properly clean it. Again, that's a prime example of when you're painting, just, don't worry about leaving and coming back in. It's fine. Yeah, we'll catch you at any point. Again, this is probably going on for another, Jesus, we ran longer than expected. That was an hour and a bit. We'll keep going though for the time being. When my fiance comes home, I'll cut it up. We'll call it a wrap. But yeah, making mistakes is part of the learning process. So when you're painting any of these miniatures, again, as long as you take something from it, and again, enjoying it, I think, is still the most important thing. But if you want to improve and you want to learn, some of that comes from, I put paint on too thick. I can see the lines of paint from my brush. Little bits like that. And you learn how to thin down your paints. And then you learn when you thin down your paints, you can be more accurate because it flows better from your paintbrush. So making mistakes is usually put in a bad way. We put making mistakes in such a bad light that people are afraid to actually then try things, which is the antithesis of any arts. I think that one of the best examples that I found, or one of the best examples that I've heard, is tattoo artists. And it's like, if you want to be a tattoo artist, show me 1,000 lines. And it sounds stupid, but the idea is you do one line and it's squiggly, it's not straight. And eventually you do 1,000 lines, and by the last 300-400, they're straight lines. All of them. They're identical. They're all perfectly straight lines. And then you do circles. So you learn how to do a circle. Perfectly draw a circle. Draw a circle again. And every time, you get less and less oval, and you get more and more perfect circle. That's how painting works. You have to learn how to paint a line. You have to learn how to paint a circle. You have to do these motions enough that your hands remember exactly how to do it, and with precision. Now, I know there are people out there as well that have either various disabilities, or they have what they might call like shaky hands syndrome, where they can't keep their hands still. Like, I'm not a surgeon. My hands aren't absolutely perfect, but they're not massively shaking. So you might have some limitations. I think just to make your lives easier, magnification will help you a lot. I'm lucky that my eyes are still pretty good. They're not perfect, but they are pretty good, and I paint in quite high detail without magnification. But if you can get like one of those 2 times, 2.5 times lenses that you can just pop in your head, and they have lights. Lighting is really important. If you can see this here, we have a big light here. You can't see, but you can see it against my hand. I have a softbox light here. So all of these things I use when I'm painting as much light as is physically possible. It does wash out colors a bit, depending on your light temperature and the rest of your ambient lighting. So in terms of like how you adjust colors, again, maybe a bit too advanced for the techniques. But yeah, you want good lighting so you can see what you're doing. It sounds very obvious, but the amount of people that will paint in light that is akin to this, you see the difference? Like, yeah, you miss out so much detail in your miniatures. And certainly you need to be able to see the tip of your brush. So yeah, good lighting. If you need magnification, don't feel like you look stupid. It's a great idea so that you can see all those little details in your miniature and paint it to its the best of your ability. Making mistakes in the hobby is set in stone. Yeah, the beauty is that you can fix them. Yeah, 100%. Again, it depends how you are, what your mentality is. Some people in particular like to go back and see their miniatures, how they started, and they like to see that journey and that progression, which is amazing. But that nostalgia could be something that you don't necessarily care about, and a year down the line you think, well, actually I kind of want this Marine to look as good as the rest of my army now, because I'm putting him on the board and he looks a bit silly. I think it's 90% isopropyl alcohol, and you can literally let it sit in a tub for about 2 days. There is another type of gel. I can't remember the name of it. Someone leave it in chat. But it's like a thick goop. And again, you'd leave that miniature in there for an hour or so, or well, longer than an hour. It needs time to break down basically the acrylic paint. That's quite useful. I mentioned it before, but I think my head torch has been the most useful thing I've bought. Again, it's a source of light. If you think of some of the expensive rigs that you might have seen, I'm trying to think who uses them, but there's like the massive light bars, and they come all the way across. So like a semicircle light, all facing inwards. You can change the temperature, you can change the brightness. It's a really useful tool, but it's also more expensive. If you find that a head torch, and this goes for everyone, not just Jack, but if you find the head torch is enough illumination to improve your painting and improve certainly your eye strain, you want to reduce eye strain as much as possible. These things are worth more than gold. Keep them in good condition, always use good lighting, try not to stay in the dark, try not to create too much contrast with dark environments with bright lights. This is actually a bad example of that because this is two bright lights in a darkening environment. But if I do this, I don't like that lighting just on the top of my head there. Cambridge away in the second round draw. Oh, brilliant. So I'm not going to tell you who I support in football because that's almost like politics in some parts of the UK, and we don't want that to be a problem. I've only done about 20 miniatures, but I'm not going to lie. After doing that many, I can start to see the difference. Yeah, you will do. Yeah. More ways that I can describe the way that you improve with time. Playing piano. My mother's house had a rickety old piano that my sister bought that was never properly tuned, but it was a relatively cheap piano, surprisingly cheap. And I would play through music to a point where I couldn't continue. Like my hands could not do what I needed to play the song. But when I'd come back the next day, it was like muscle memory had then kicked in, and my hands could play the music as it should sound. So practice is one thing, but also there are moments where you will lose focus. You will have that mental strain, like doing 6 shows in a day and then coming onto a live stream and trying to make your brain work. But there's plenty of times where you'll hit a roadblock. Writers will call it writing block. Painters, I'm not sure what they would call it, but you certainly come up to a point where you can't improve. And in fact, sometimes you're making the miniature worse because you're losing your precision. And the best thing to do when you hit moments like that, rather than be frustrated and trying to like brute force your way through the problem, give your brain time to rest. Come back the next day. If you need to keep painting or you want to keep painting, but certainly you've hit a wall on a miniature, whether it's like the finest of details, move on to a different miniature. Don't give yourself the pressure of having to achieve a certain result. Try and enjoy everything that you do as much as possible, because this isn't, none of this is life or death. This is an enjoyable hobby, whether you do it for YouTube and you do it for work, or whether you do it for just a little bit of a relax at the end of the day. You've done a hard day's work, regardless of what you do, and you just want to relax. Then if painting is your therapy, enjoy it. It means more than anything else. Having good results, or what people would call good results. I mean, unless you're at the very tippy top of Golden Demon, you still have so much to learn. I have so much to learn even after 25 years. In fact, I have a lot to learn because techniques have changed so much from what was my predominant style, which was more like box art. So now I incorporate volumetric highlights into my minis. So if you see my Blood Angels, you have build-up of colours on the shoulders, on the knee pads, any round surfaces. We add extra volume to it so that you have that depth. And same with shading. So all those kind of things where I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. But all of these techniques, they take time to learn and practice and play about with. Don't expect that you're going to be amazing at them first time. Just enjoy the process. And again, if you're finding that you're doing worse or more harm than good, just stop what you're doing and go back and just move on to something else. I think that's the point made there, I hope. So all of this was supposed to be a build video. I think we've actually had quite a lot more fun doing something a bit different. But shall we go try and build this pylon before we come off stream? I think that's a goal worth working for. So we're actually going to be removing parts 4 and 9. And I think they're obviously different at some part. I could be wrong. No, they look identical. Okay, so we're going to take off the right ones. All of these have numbers with arrows pointing to them, so you can figure out which one is which. So this is part 9, just so you can figure out which orientation they need to be in. Also, feel free to ask more questions in the chat. It doesn't mean that I'm going to stop responding to you all. Anything that you want to ask, I'm here for at least, I'd say, another 20 minutes or so. Okay. So with Zeratul, attaching the clear plastics onto the main plastics was a bit more of a hassle. As far as I've been made aware through some of the Discord, this is actually quite a bit easier, as in the coloured plastics that they have for the new kits is a little bit softer and a little bit easier to work with. What have we got there? Okay, it's the same comment. Right, so let's just check the right side. So we have 9, it is on this side here, and where does it fit in? Okay, so we have little sections on here. It is surprisingly cleverly designed as this. So we have got these downside of looking in the wrong place. We have these little sections in here that just fit in. So really well designed miniatures of these. I'd say the Archon Studio team have done a genuinely incredible job with these miniatures. Any of you coming from the likes of Warhammer, I think these miniatures are better detailed. They, on just a more granular level, they seem to be willing to put in the extra chips in the like chitinous armor of a Zerg, whereas Tyranids are quite a bit smoother. The Protoss, the details in them weren't as obvious until after we had sprayed them up, and then we started to get that depth that comes with the primer. It is insane to see the amount of detail that is in the, trying to think the best way to put this, the amount of detail that they've put into like the chitinous armor, like the scratches in there. It's mental. They have gone above and beyond what we get with the likes of, you know, Warhammer. And I love Warhammer. This isn't a knock on them. It's more just an eye-opener as to just how different these two companies are in how they produce these miniatures. So I don't know if you can see that. In fact, we'll bring it a bit closer. Oh, that's nice. So you can see these two pieces when they go together. There is a little bit of a gap, which we're going to use again for that capillary effect with the Tamiya Extra Thin Cement. Not a sponsor, but that plastic cement is probably going to be what you need 90% of the time. It is one of the better plastic glues on the market. In terms of alternatives, there is other brands, but this style with the nozzle and a more of a gel-like consistency give you a lot of, I'm trying to think the best way to describe this. If this stuff is super thin and is good at putting two pieces that fit flush together, the plastic glue from like Citadel is really good at putting together plastic components that are hanging on by a thread. So Zeratul, for instance, his foot there, as you can see, there's not a great deal of surface area. And if I was to apply that with Tamiya, that miniature would snap. It wouldn't be enough to hold it together. Whereas with the Citadel plastic glue, you're getting like the perfect adhesion, even though it takes a little bit of time for that particular miniature because I had to go through some paint first. Yeah, it's different tools for different purposes. Same as anything in life, really. There is no like miracle glue that does everything that you need. And at times you might even need super glue. I try and avoid super glue these days because I find that plastic glue does such a better job of adhering and it's less likely to snap. Also, when you do have like primed materials like this, you just squeeze that together and see if you can see it on there. You see like the bubbles where the joint is. Don't know if that's obvious. Just like some bubbles just on that edge. The plastic glue itself, the acetone, will melt paint. So you actually end up with these little bubbles of paint coming off. So I actually have slightly gold fingers now. Now, again, anything that you want to know, do let me know in the comments. Because again, I can just build this in my own time. I don't mind going through questions rather than necessarily just building this. I have all evening to finish building off my Protoss force. And the plastic glue almost feels like welding and helps you melt bits together sometimes. Yeah. So there's several techniques. Obviously, I've done like a capillary effect on this. I've just put in a little blob. It's gone into the gaps and spaces between the pieces. And then you just press them together and it melts together. There is, if you like dry your brush out a little bit and brush it onto some plastic, it will tacky it up. So it'll go from like being a soft, smooth plastic to a, sticky sort of substance. Then you can put that onto another piece and they will again adhere. If you do it on both sides, it should adhere and it should stick relatively well, but I think it adheres better when it has the plastic cement, the acetone, sit between two plastic pieces because it doesn't have the air dry it out as quickly. So now, if we look to these pieces here, they are adhered nicely. The joins on the top and the bottom section are looking pretty decent. I'm just going to add a little bit more onto this side. Just seeing this little section here is still floating a bit. It's to be expected because this has been primed first. You're having to melt through the paint layer to get to the plastic. Now, it is seen as a disadvantage. If you can get away with not doing that, sure. Because we've got clear plastics on here, it's an almost necessary sort of thing to be able to keep these plastics as clear as possible so that we can work on them at a later date. So what have we got on here? How can I avoid painting the translucent plastic? Not much experience. Okay, I've got you back here. So everything that I've done, let me just reach into this cupboard. We have various spray cans of different colors. So we've just got Death Guard green as an example. These sprues you don't want to touch with any form of paint until basically your base coats are done. So I'll go through each army. Terrans, super easy. Paint the entire miniature and then stick your little special effects on afterwards. If you want to then paint over certain sections, I mean, like if you're looking at like the bullet smoke, you might want the plume of the flash to still be like whites and grays and look like, explosive force has gone off. But then with the amber sections, you might want to leave like little gaps where you've got like that light coming through still, but you still have that feel of an explosion, like the bright light of the chemical combustion. When it comes to Protoss, all of the Protoss minis, the main color is, of course, gold. So I have sprayed everything in gold on the opaque sprues, i.e. not the transparent ones. Literally just gone over all of those, spun it around. They are all sprayed in gold. This is not the original sprue color. So the actual color difference isn't massive, but this is obviously more fine metallic gold. So it looks more natural to what we're trying to do with the Protoss. So that means that when you build up like the blades, for instance, the blue transparent part is still going to be blue and transparent when you add that glue in. So you'll still have the gold layer. And then if you're adding in any contrasts or shades or anything like that, you don't have to paint it onto the clear plastic, but you can get all of this section without having to have gone over with a base coat and then risked having a really opaque paint over where you've got a transparent part. So then you're working in shades, working in contrast, both of which are thinner and less likely to add that matte texture to the clear plastics. Hopefully that's explained well enough for you. You must construct... Nice. Yeah, I'm actually really happy that they have given us the pylon. I think StarCraft 2 really gave me the look of pylons that I wanted, which was before with StarCraft 1, pylons were just there to create the energy field to build new structures, to power up your structures. StarCraft 2 showed you that you could just warp in masses of units on top of them. So you could just build a pylon anywhere on the I want to say game board. This is not a war game. I'm talking about the video game. Anywhere on the map. And yeah, you could literally just teleport your entire army from a warp gate onto this little section. So the cinematic scene, if any of you are new to StarCraft, by the way, and you want to see a really cool video, go look at the, I think it's the cinematic, I don't know if it's a cinematic trailer or the opening trailer for Legacy of the Void. The video with like the Protoss fighting Zerg to like the last man, and he's on his own. And then, yeah, let's just say some of his mates come along. It's a really cool scene. I recommend watching it. It's really cool. As cool as all nerdish things can go. I think my fiance would say it's not cool, but she's wrong. No, I mean, she's right. That's what I meant to say. She's definitely right. Anyway, you're more than welcome. Any other questions? You know, again, I've got 25 years of experience. There's not masses of things that I haven't done. I mean, I also have not done many things. I'm not, you know, I've seen some incredible painters, but 25 years of experience does get you quite a lot of problem-solving skills, and certainly within an artistic field. All right, here's a good example for you. So on this sprue here, I don't know if I can bring that up close enough. Over here, there's this long piece, and the section that the gate is on is at an angle. So you've got a long piece with an angle with your sprue gate on it. And to actually get that with the clippers, it doesn't quite reach around enough because there's things in the way. So when you find something like this where you don't have access close enough with your clippers, it's a really simple solution. But if you're new to wargaming, certainly with miniatures, all you need to do is clip it further or closer to the sprue. Obviously, this is the sprue itself. So you just clip it down there. And then when you come to take it off, it's a lot easier. Let's take off the wrong one. Yes. Not that it makes a difference. But yeah, just clip further down the gate, and then once the piece is detached, you have better access to these sections then. For a lot of people, that is like telling you how to breathe. For people that are new to the game, that have never experienced that before, these are the kind of things that really frustrate you, because you end up with like nubbins that you don't want on your miniatures, and it makes it harder for you to build your miniatures as well. So again, if you go through like my catalog of videos, we have a specific StarCraft video. My time is quite limited at the moment for this month, so it is a, you know, relatively what I would call cheaply shot video. But if you want a fully comprehensive guide, we have one further down, which is more of like a Warhammer based video, but that will teach you everything that you need to basically understand all of these sprues, how they're made, how to work on them, what tools to use, all that kind of stuff. So on this, we just had one of the gates, we've clipped it, but there's still like a bit of material on. So what you do, you can get like a fine knife, but that does incur risks, and people do cut themselves quite often in this hobby. If you want to avoid that, take something like your clippers, and obviously you can see there, you have a fine edge on there, a sharp edge. And you can literally just run that along the plastic. The plastic on this seems to be soft enough, but hard enough that you can scrape at it without it juttering. If it's really soft, you'll jutter. This seems to be of a reasonable quality, actually. I'm not having any problems with it. So, again, good to know for some people. For me, it's just nice to know that they've, used the best materials. Again, these are significantly cheaper than Warhammer miniatures. I think one of the risks of that is that you feel like, where are they saving the costs? And in terms of Archon Studios, I think it is literally just in their profit margin. They're just happy to take less of a profit margin. And this is one of their more expensive games because it's an IP. So obviously, Blizzard take quite a deal of money out because, it's technically their game, which is fair enough. But yeah, let's see, what number did I actually just clip there? Number 5. Which side is 5 going on? Or does it not matter? It might matter. Right, we need 15 and 16. So we have, again, just so you guys can actually see, I'm not just willy-nilly chopping these. We have the build guide here. So it's told we need 15 and 5 to go together, and we need 16 and 8 to go together. So those two are very specific. So we need to make sure that we actually clip the right pieces. Do you think we could get some photon cannon for Protoss and a bunker for Terran? As far as I'm aware, they're considering it. So I presume it's not going to be this year, but maybe next year, maybe the year after. They've said that they're planning roughly a 10-year model release, which, if any of you know StarCraft, yes, it's been going a long time. Some of the miniatures that they're planning on creating have been mentioned in universe, but not actually shown before. So they're clearly working with Blizzard on a deeper level. But there's not a massive amount of miniatures. I mean, there's plenty of characters, and you can do alternate characters, but 10 years worth of miniatures is a big ask. So I think what they've got is a little bit more information than that. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with a StarCraft 3 at some point. It would not be a surprise to me. Right, so we have an orientation on here. So again, when you're building these, this is more aimed at people that haven't built miniatures before, so I'm sorry if I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but always check your orientation. So on there, you can see like there's like the smaller nubbin at the top from this. So like that, the small nubbin on the top, and that matches up to the longer piece of the clear plastic. So take your time, especially with these kind of miniatures. They're a bit newer. I think as far as like the style of build, they are more complex than what you would find with Games Workshop. Archon are happy to make something that should or could be done in 4 parts, in 6 parts or 7 or 8 parts. They're happy to give you more plastic to have a better result. So yeah, this just literally goes in like so. Super obvious. Again, we're going to use that capillary effect. So we're just going to take our little Tamiya glue, and we're just going to let the brush just sit in a gap and let all of the acetone just release itself into the gaps of the miniature. It's the easiest technique in the world. Again, if you're doing this with like Citadel glue or like the ones with the pointed like applicators, or the precision applicators, I think is a better way to put it, you might find that they're wanting, you're going to have to dry fit, which is like what we just did then, where we put the piece in, hadn't applied glue, but we made sure that the fit was correct and that there wasn't anything that was in the way. So with dry fitting, you'd also find roughly where your touch points are, where the material meets. Then you would apply your plastic glue. That's why I never mentioned the greatest team in the land. Cheers, Pat. Slightly controversial, the football team I spot, but from Croydon, so you can try and figure it out. It's not Crystal Palace. Again, in England, football's quite a big thing. I'm not a massive football fan or anything like that, but you know, my team is still my team. Do you think we? Oh yeah, we did say photon cannon. Yeah, I genuinely think we're going to find bits of terrain. I think we're going to find crashed bits of ships as pieces of terrain as well. And as far as I know, they are planning on doing like an inside of like a battle cruiser, that kind of thing, inside of a starship as a map. So currently we have Lost Temple. If you look at my StarCraft, if I was going to say StarCraft 2 unboxing, it's not. If you look at my 2-player set unboxing, that has all of the terrain that comes with it. And in the back of the rules guide, in fact, I can just show you this. So in the back of the rules guide, we have various layouts. So it gives you all of the terrain on here. Let's see if I can bring that a bit closer to you guys. So you have all of the terrain on here, and at the bottom you can see like the Lost Temple ramp. That's the one that's coming out for Wave 2. But it'll show you build guides for larger games, aka your 2000 mineral games, and further at the back it will show you the smaller games, which is your 1000-point games, which is what comes in each of the starter sets. You get 1000 minerals of Zerg, 1000 minerals of Terran, and 1000 minerals of Protoss. So the terrain set that it gives you, you get a full-sized board, but you only get half of the terrain. So if you have a Lost Temple terrain set, that's enough to do the smaller skirmishes, the 1000-point stuff. If you have 2 of them, you then have enough to be able to do the 2000-point games and have the terrain that would fit that kind of a map. Otherwise, it's quite a loose sort of amount of terrain. It's not really a problem, I don't think. But if you were looking to, you know, maybe have more terrain on your board, then they have kind of thought of it. In terms of terrain painting, I will be doing a guide of how to paint your terrain. Again, I don't know if it'll be done in a live stream. I don't think it's the most complex thing, but certainly we can start off painting it from black. So I'll undercoat all the terrain in black, or the alternate for that would be to paint it in a very light grey and then go over with like contrast paints. But you end up with like, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. Again, you end up with like a patchiness. Contrast paints over big panels leaves like inconsistencies, which maybe once you've dry brushed over, which is a technique where you take like a big flat brush, you load up your brush with paint, don't thin it, you brush onto like a towel, a paper towel, and it leaves just enough paint residue on your brush that when you lightly brush over the texture, the detail of the miniatures, it leaves the paint that you've got just on the highest points. Hopefully that's a good enough explanation for those of you that haven't dry brushed before. But the technique itself is very good for things like terrain, things like materials like fabric. Where I find it doesn't work, and again, I say doesn't work, it just depends how far you want to go with your miniatures. But I find for things like ceramite or anything that's like a smooth armor, whether it's ceramics or metals, it leaves too much of a texture. So you don't have the smoothness to it. But it's still a very good technique. And if you're learning how to paint, it's like a superb technique for you to just go into and kind of, yeah, I'm trying to think of the correct term for it, but yeah, just to, you know, get your beak wet, which actually sounds like a terrible saying, but yeah, you know, get some experience. That's kind of where I'm going with that. Now, what time are we on? Coming up to 8:15. I think this is this the last clear piece? That feels like that's too soon. There should be more, surely. Are there more clear pieces? No. This actually isn't that big of a build or that big of a thing to build. Obviously, in terms of time, we've taken our time building it, but this, outside of talking and answering questions and stuff like that, wouldn't take very long. So I've made more of a mess of it, I suppose, or I've taken a lot of time to get through it. But there's not actually that many components to this particular piece of terrain. I mean, it's kind of terrain. It's also like a bit of a token / a marker. Right. Again, just capillary affecting. Let me just do it a bit higher up. See if you can see this. So we just dab that in there. You can see all of it goes out from the brush and just finds every touch point that piece is touching and just saturates it with your plastic glue. So Tamiya stuff is amazing. Do you think StarCraft is going to make many people abandon 40k? No, I don't think it is. I think 40k is untouchable. If ever, and I understand why people do it. Clickbait is certainly not promoted by YouTube. I don't think that's the right way to put it, because YouTube wants good content. But YouTube does promote, videos that get clicks. So you'll find clickbaity titles like, is this the game that finally beats Warhammer? Or is this the game that finally kills Warhammer? All those kind of extreme titles. And the content of them is probably perfectly reasonable and good, but obviously the title is a bit extreme. I mean, I kind of had an extreme title when my Zeratul came, and it's like I spent £300 on Zeratul. I didn't. I spent £300 on Zeratul and the 2 starter sets, but Lord knows where these 2 were when that came, because I had no tracking information, as did very few people in the UK, which is a bit of a shambles. But in terms of like anything bringing down Warhammer, no. Games Work, they're not too big to fail, but I mean, you might be talking 20 years down the line before they ever have any problems. They're not untouchable, but they are some of the best. Right, I need to figure out which is which on these now. Okay, we'll just work out my sides again. Take your time with them, look at the miniatures, make sure they are orientated correctly. The one without the little bit poking through goes on this side. So again, play about with we do like dry fitting and stuff like that to try and figure out where these fit. So again, talking about dry fitting, to get that to fit in there, it's not overly obvious which piece it clicks into until you eventually find the right spot and it's not going anywhere. So at this point now, ooh, why is that touching? Nice. They've really worked on every detail of this. So there's like 2, let me just close up there. There's like 2 little holes in there. And I couldn't tell what on earth was going in. It turns out these little side pieces in here. So actually you can use that to orientate yourself. And we'll just whack in the other piece as well now, using those as our guides. There we go. So now we have our piece all connected up. Yeah, in terms of what StarCraft's going to do, I think StarCraft may end up becoming, the second most popular wargaming game. I think that is almost entirely down to the fact that as far as a community that exists concurrent to the game coming out, StarCraft 2 is one of the biggest RTS games in the world. So of course it's going to be popular. I'm actually more surprised that Archon didn't expect this game to be as popular as it was, because all of the signs were there, really. And, Jarek, if any of you watch the Ask Me Anythings from Archon Studios, Jarek will openly say, like, the name of the company, Archon Studios, is a direct link to StarCraft. It was also his childhood, which I completely get. Well, maybe not his childhood, because he's a bit older than me, but I think Pat would be willing to say that certainly Starcraft was a big part of my childhood. Starcraft 1. Then it was after the Olympics. So I was a soldier, reservist, and we did like security on the Olympic Games. So after that, when I came back home, I had a little bit of money for a change. And what do you spend money on when you got a bit of money? A gaming laptop. It turns out I got the Samsung Series 7 Gamer, which I can't find the charging cable for, otherwise I'd still use it for like Dawn of War. And I got StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty. And if you can see it just down there, I got the Heart of the Swarm limited edition, or collector's edition. Honestly, I was so happy that I could have something that would play it, for starters, because these were way too advanced for anything that I had prior to that. And then recently I picked up the collector's edition for Wings of Liberty and Legacy of the Void, and they were 40 quid each. I'm shocked. And both of these were completely sealed. Like, no one had touched them. And then I get them and unwrap everything because, you know, I want to use these for, you know, looking at the art books and using that inspiration. Even this is, you know, Jim Raynor's dog tag, apparently. But even this has like StarCraft 2 and no, not StarCraft 2, StarCraft and StarCraft Brood War, like hard loaded into it. It's just stupid, and it lights up. In fact, do I have anything that will actually plug into it that I can show you that it lights up with? Possibly not on me, but it exists. It might exist in the Terran video, possibly. I definitely filmed something with it. All right. Still with the bad publicity Games Workshop is getting, and Archon being Polish, I'm all in with StarCraft. Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like, I don't support Games Workshop because they're British. I support them because my childhood was entirely based around it. But I have absolutely nothing but respect for Archon Studios, not just for like the, you know, taking up this challenge, which I have been very frustrated. All of these miniatures coming 3 weeks ago would have been a very different production plan to what it is now. As it stands at the moment, I have 4 hours, roughly 4 to 5 hours per night. Weekends I've got free, so I can make some better content over the weekend. But just like on an evening, I'm doing long days. I say long days, it's 7 hours of performing, but it's 6 shows and 3 hours of travel per day. So it's a lot of travel. It's basically a 10-hour day, you know, as I leave the house and come back. And then coming in to do 4 hours of filming is, in fact, even that. If I film a video for an hour, the prep work for that is usually going to be about anywhere between quarter of an hour to half an hour, depending on what I need, whether it's like, you know, set dressing and things like that, grabbing a few things so that I can make things look a bit nicer. But, you know, there's a lot of time that goes into making these things look the way that I want and feel the way that I want, just so it's a bit more interesting. Because I'm not in an expensive studio. In fact, the expensive studio is, if you haven't seen it prior, literally there. That's the voiceover booth. That's where I do some amazing stuff with other studios, be it animation, video games, all that kind of stuff. That is where I do quite a lot of work. So I do all forms of acting. So voiceover is just one part of my, you know, plethora of acting talents. But it means that all of this is just basically just the rest of the room. So I need to make it look a little bit jazzy, hence posters and stuff. Hey, look, we've been running our live stream for so long that the light has died. I don't even think I can unplug it, because if I unplug it, I think the phone might drop out, because we're using the iPhone as the camera for the MacBook, and it has to be hardwired for that. But yeah. Anyway, let me just... No, that's a bit too bright. There we go. That'll do. So we're now bouncing light off of the wall onto me, so it's a bit more even. Can I bring that back a little bit? Again, we're talking about techniques for how to make good videos. Understanding lighting is very important. And the one thing that I do have, thanks to being, that in that creative space, the acting side of things, is I do understand lighting rigs and all this kind of jazz and how to bounce light and make the best of it. All right, we're just going to fill in the last little bits of this plastic. I am shocked, by the way. I thought that I would have had 90 million miniatures built by now, and we've nearly finished a pylon. But I do hope that you have actually been enjoying, just having a bit of a free chat, really. It's not like can ask me anything, but it is kind of just, have a chat back and forth. I've certainly been enjoying it. In talking about talking about bad publicity, I don't think GW, in terms of the mainstream audience that plays it, I don't think there really is that bitter taste. And I think certainly their miniatures are more expensive than something like Archon Studios. They are expensive. I think the value that comes from any of these war games is quite high. For instance, if you buy a video game, maybe a video game is the only example where you can spend £40 and play with something for years, if you choose to. Most video games, you might play 100 hours and then stop. With, Warhammer or Starcraft, you spend, for instance, that box there, it came in the 3 army set, so I had the 2 as 1. So it was £215. That was about 150. That was about 75 pounds to euros, roughly 90 euros to dollars, roughly 110. Yeah, about 110, 115 US. I think, just move my hand because that's vibrating the camera a bit. The amount of hobby that you get out of that, I have Lord knows how many hours of building. I mean, you are talking maybe 2 evenings of building, roughly 6 hours, let's say, of building them, to go through all of the miniatures. Again, I'm doing things in sub-assembly, which, if you're new to miniatures, means that I'm painting things before building them entirely. The best example of that is, of course, the Sentry dome, which we take that off, and you can see there the base is done separately. None of this is glued down, but it will be, just not right now. In fact, does it need to be? Possibly not. Anyway, to get back on topic, 6 hours of building. Painting wise, if you want to do non-metallic metal and paint every single miniature like it belongs in a display in Archon Studios, like booths and whatever they have at various conventions, you could be spending just on a single zealot, 12 to 15 hours. That's a box set with 6 for 2, about 14, 15 miniatures, I think, plus your little tokens. So that could quite comfortably be in the region of, 150 to 200 hours of painting. And that's without you even then playing a game with them. You play a game with those, and now all of a sudden, the amount of value that you've got from spending £75 is 3, 4, 5,000 hours, depending on how many days you want to play StarCraft. I mean, if you have a game a month, and that game takes you 6 hours a day, you've got so much out of it that, remember the hours of admiring your work. I have forgotten about the amount of times that you just stare at miniatures and the details. But even just being a part of this hobby, the amount of time that you'll spend talking to other creators, other artists, there is so much value built into wargaming that very few other hobbies give back quite as much and allow you to personalize what you have as much as tabletop miniatures. I mean, you look at Space Marines. We'll go to Warhammer. You can buy a Space Marine. You can then make that Space Marine a Blood Angel, or an Ultramarine, or a Dark Angel, or a chapter of your choosing, or the options there are infinite. You can create a backstory for a custom chapter if you wanted, or you can have the books for the Ultramarines and know everything about what that chapter has done. There is so much hobby built around all of these little individual miniatures, and you can create your own miniatures and build up all these little details on there. They can have like reliquaries, which are like bones in like little boxes that like show their commander or their previous trainer who died in battle against a Tyrannid because he got bogged down by 50 billion of them and his bolter ran out of rounds. There's so much to read, so much to build, so much to paint, so much to enjoy, and the community is thankfully quite large for both StarCraft and Warhammer. Master Chief and Cortana are off to fight more Flood. Enjoy. I'm due to stop at some point very soon because I've not had anything to eat since this morning. So ideally, it would be nice to actually like have something to eat. Again, just going on to dealing with some of the flash on here. Can you see just underneath my finger? There's just like a little nubbin of plastic. So that's the kind of thing that if that interacted with another piece of plastic on the miniature, it could stop us from building it flush as intended, so it won't look quite right. So we are literally just shaving it off with the back of our clippers. Again, hopefully not too boring. But yeah, again, I have full details. I know I keep repeating it, but I don't know who's watching at any point. So if you do want to actually have like full build guides, I have them on the channel as we speak, whether it's the comprehensive guide, which is, it obviously is Warhammer miniatures because StarCraft miniatures hadn't landed at that point, but it goes into every granular detail that you would need to know to build your first miniature. When it comes to paint guides, the 12-hour painting challenge, as I go through it, I'll be talking about what paints I'm using, how I'm using them. So you'll have a guide to basically paint your first Protoss. The techniques that I'm using for the painting challenge are about speed. So there will be certain elements where you can improve on it later down the line, but you'll have a technique that will look really good on the tabletop. Like painting gold is really easy. If any of you do have a chance, have a look at my painting Lionel Johnson, who is a Dark Angels Primarch. So he's like a really cool Space Marine character. I say Space Marine. He's not a Space Marine. He's more. But if you're not in the Warhammer universe and you don't understand these things, don't worry about it. Go have a look at that video. Go look at how I painted the golds on like his shoulder trim and stuff like that. That technique is how I'm painting my Protoss. So things will clear up a little bit as to how these are going to look. But we're talking lots of depth. We've got a nice, cool, tarnished gold. It's going to look fantastic. In fact, I think it might be a bit frustrating because the light's not working, but there's a little teaser of it just on Zeratul's base there. Again, that's been dry brushed over with a bit of a cream. So it's possibly got onto bits of the gold. But yeah, just to give you like a rough idea, it should be relatively matted down. I don't like my golds to be shiny, but when you go over them and highlight them, you have that pop still. But yeah, silvery gold with lots of depth and a slight hint of blue. So it's a bit tarnished gold, not pure gold. Again, maybe the kind of gold that you would expect as a form of armor. Now, I have here, what piece did I just remove? You know, when you rush through things and you don't really pay attention. Definitely wasn't piece 9. Just trying to figure out where I even got this bit from. Oh no, it's 6. Okay, so we got piece 6. That goes on to which side? On this side here. I nearly have a pylon built, guys. It's been 2 hours something ridiculous like that. 2 hours, and we nearly have a singular pylon. Okay, so again, working on dry fit. You can just see on there, that's going on quite nicely. I apologize if the lighting's a bit poor now. Obviously, the softbox has died after a couple of hours, which is totally understandable. That thing has been working constantly all day. Oh, not all day, for the entire live stream. Right. One thing that I am noticing is there is a bit of play in this, so I'm just going to check if we have any extra flash or anything extra from the gates that's stopping it from going down flush. It doesn't feel like it, so we are just going to glue it in place. And again, Tamiya Extra Thin, not a sponsor, but I would love them to be. Because it's a capillary effect, if there is anything where it could run through like a gap onto your hand, try and figure out where to place your hand so that it won't move onto your fingers, because your fingerprints will pick up the acetone, it will capillary effect along your fingers or your fingerprints, and it will leave a fingerprint etched into your paint. So just keep that in mind. It's only minor things, but it does happen. Right, this is definitely 6. The other one must be 7 then. Yeah. Check this is on the correct side. The one thing I don't want is for this to be on the wrong side, and then we have problems down the line. So that is going in place. I'm just going to glue on the other side as well. We're actually using quite big blobs of Tamiya just so that it does find all of those crevices. The one thing I don't want is this to like pull apart. Off topic, is that a NAD you have on the top shelf? NAD, in case respect, Alex from Denmark. NAD. You might have to explain to me what NAD is. Just break down the acronym for me. That's a good question. Just join the chat. Really enjoying your channel. Love the content on 40k, but the big draw is StarCraft. Yeah, again, I'm covering both, so don't feel like if you enjoy StarCraft and don't care about Warhammer, I'm not going to be offended if you just come for the StarCraft content. I want you to have what is best for you. In terms of my production plan, certainly when new waves come, I'm going to be focusing on getting StarCraft content out. If I then dry up on StarCraft content, I do have things like, for instance, the Protoss, they're going to be painted to a challenge standard, which is my way of saying, if I have 12 hours to paint 15 miniatures, the chances are I have to cut a few steps and there's things that I'll improve. So I might do an army showcase down the line in which I have improved these details and they look a lot better. But for the most part, once the miniatures have been built, painted, there's certain things that we can do. I have to be careful doing like battle reports. In my local area, there's only one other person that plays StarCraft, so the chances of me doing a battle report against someone is actually quite slim. In terms of like doing like training, like, playing myself, then it's a little bit sad hammer if you were playing Warhammer, but in terms of, releasing some videos of how these armies work and things that I've found, then it might still be useful, it might still be interesting, but certainly miniature showcases, or army showcases, I should say, because we'll showcase the lot. That's on the tables. But I think the release plan for Archon is roughly every 3 months. So, every 3 months, I'm going to have around about 2 months worth of content. And I will alternate that like week on week. I'll want to do one Warhammer video, one StarCraft video. For this month, because I have 3 armies to build and paint, it's going to be essentially the entire month is going to be StarCraft. The last thing I released was the Orc Showcase, which has done really well. If any of you guys want to see the Orcs, I'll bring them over. Because the softbox light is out, it probably looks a bit grainy and rubbish, but hey. So here we have the Orc army, and so I set up like a bit of a board with some terrain just to give it like a bit of a diorama style, just so that I could do some nice photos for the channel. What are they called? The community tab. So if any of you guys want to share your work in progress, whether it's you're building miniatures, you're painting them, any critiques and things like that that you might want, then head over to the community tab, go post some photos in there. Genuinely one of the most, like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like one of the most wholesome parts of YouTube that I wasn't expecting. Like, for instance, you do part of a sound system. All right, so in terms of sound system, this isn't. If this is what you mean, that's just like a shelf. If we're talking sound systems, I mean, that gives you a rough idea. Although I will say that that is missing. Sorry if that's creaking. Ooh, sorry about that. If that's been creaking coming right through the phone, I don't have a lot of room with this setup. But I have a mediocre like sound system that, to be fair, you play music, it's just lacking bass because it is just two woofers. But they're like, I think they're like 40 watt or something, or no, they might be less than that. But they're really crystal clear. They're like high quality speakers. I'll see if I can find the name for them. Yeah, so the speakers are Eclipse. I'm pretty sure they're a good brand. I got given them, funnily enough, from a customer when I did car detailing. So I'm actually really grateful because they turned out to be quite useful as not in booth reference, but like once I've recorded audio to go back over and check that everything sounds clear on different systems. So I have a full audio setup. I don't use it for my videos. That mic is so sensitive, you can hear every like rasp of my breath. It like requires good technique, and you have to be very focused in on what you're saying. Doing voiceover for like a video is not unheard of. It's just a lot of extra effort, and I don't think it makes the most appreciable difference, especially compared to just being able to speak and flow freely making videos. So that's always kind of where I focus. Right. Pylon update. It's starting to look more like a pylon now. And look at that. So we have some covers that are going to be going over these bigger pieces. Oh my lord. Right, let me show you the build guide. We are on the last steps, I promise you. This is nearly done and I can move on with my life. If you can see steps 7 and 8, to cover up the big blue sections here, we have, let me just get the camera to focus. We have 3 pieces that go over it in sequence. So that's quite a lot, I think. The plastic glue is struggling a little bit because it's having to glue through paint. So that is a little bit tacky and not entirely cohesive just yet. But in terms of how the pylon's looking, I mean, yeah, it's quite smart. I really wanted to paint the base so I could just glue it on. And then I remembered that I have to do the 12-hour painting challenge. And if I just paint all of the miniatures and paint the bases, it's kind of defeating the objective, isn't it? Right, 1, 2, and 3. These are nicely labeled. And the other parts are 12, 11, and 10. All right, so this is my first. It's not a gripe. It's just something that I'm noticing and pointing out that Archon could have changed easily. So one side is parts 1, 2, and 3. The other sides are, 12, 11, and 10. But it can be misconstrued. If you miss that 1 at the beginning, 11 and 12 could look like 1 and 2. So just be careful when you're building them. Obviously, it's a nice, neat number to do. But if you misread it, you're going to cause yourself all kinds of heartache. But the main thing is they have at least logically put them on the sprues. So that is, 1, 2, and 3, and you've got 10, 11, 12. So they have put them together, which is clever. Again, talking about good Polish design, the actual designers for this game, for the tooling, which is what creates these sprues, all of that is top rate. Like, they've done an amazing job. The only details that I think that they need to work on a little bit more is tiny little things with like numbering there. Such minor bits that it doesn't really matter. And to be fair, having to build Gazkul had like 2 bits that are identical on 2 different sprues, not next to each other where you need them. So sprue layout is super important as well. And so far, this seems to be quite well designed in that regard. Right. Let me just clip off any excess. All of the pylon parts, the face comes out and it's curved, but then the back section that shows like the thickness of the material is all at angles. So there's actually quite a bit of like work after you have clipped out the gates just to trim them nice and neat. Hey, my fiance has just come home. So I think once we got this built up, we're going to call it quits. But I hope a lot of you have actually got quite a bit out of this. Again, it has just been a bit more of a bit of a chat. And certainly if you're building your miniatures and you're just enjoying a conversation in the background, then even better. But yeah, thank you all for actually joining for a start. We're not going just this second, but I genuinely appreciate, going live and having people come on and having questions and, actually having something to talk about. I'm really excited about this game. It might not sound it quite so much at this very second because I'm knackered, but yeah, I've been hoping for this kind of thing to come out for a long time. Let's say StarCraft has a deep resonance with me from my childhood, and those memories are hard to beat. Like when you see a siege tank for the first time in real life and you're like, oh, that's huge. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Archon do with StarCraft, with this IP. Sounds businessy in like the terminology, but just to see how they translate this game onto the tabletop in terms of like rules and stuff, I think they've done an amazing job. The way that you don't just start on the table with like a siege tank, even like zealots, you can only get so many zealots onto the board. So there's a lot of like subtle tactics to how you play. And don't get me wrong, I've not read the rulebook massively yet, just because my time is very, very limited, especially when I'm trying to create content. Which is also a terrible name, I think, for videos. Just content. It's just a bit like a flat term. So we have parts. Do we have the 11, 10, and 12? No, we have 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So you can see on here, we have this piece going over there for ire. Oh, nice to have you here. Honestly, just having this community and having people that discover my channel join the community and then actively, comment on the videos. It's nice to have that back and forth. So, especially with this part of the YouTube, this channel was originally an acting channel. You won't find those videos because they are now hidden. But yeah, that was almost a very lonely period of me for trying YouTube for the first time. Nothing worked. And then the beginning of the year, I'd just come off of an amazing acting job. I was, playing various roles around Christmas. I'll let you figure that out. And I had a little bit of spare income. So I was like, okay, I'm spending time now and I'm going to create something new. And so this channel was born. And from day dot, just having people come on, be a part of the community. You might not know Jack, for instance, but even just like having people that were willing to join the Patreon and help support the channel financially. This isn't a plug to say, please join my Patreon. The link is down below. That is nothing that if you can, brilliant. If you don't, I don't mind. The fact that people watch these videos is just like almost mind-blowing to me, because I don't entirely feel like I always deserve it, just because you see the amazing channels that exist out there. And, I'm just a tiny little channel that's, I'm just a northern Englishman / southerner, because I'm kind of, I was born down south of England and then live up north. So I'm a bit of a nomad, because southerners won't call me a southerner because of the accent, and northerners won't call me a northerner because I'm born down south. So yeah, I feel like a bit of a hermit. Is that the right term? No, it's not. No, it's not. Nomad is the right term. All right, so back on topic. But yeah, appreciate everyone that does come to these videos, watches them, enjoys them, leaves a like. All these little things, they make a huge difference to me. It means that I know that I'm making the right stuff for you guys and that you're enjoying it. So thank you so much for actually watching and enjoying the videos. I'm glad when they come out and they're useful for you. Now, this is 3 parts to make this piece. I will get back on topic. We are finishing this pylon. We are going to have power for the Protoss. So again, we have this element right here. This section just clicks on top. There we go. Here it click into place. So this is very difficult. It's like working in reverse to actually like move my hand in the opposite direction. This piece then clips on top of this. This is, again, we talk about like how crazy the designs are from Archon Studios. This is 3 pieces to make a very complex looking final piece. And then lastly, we have like a cover. If I tilt this too much, it'll fall off. So let me just cover my face and the camera knows where to autofocus. So can you see that? There's like a tiny little gem poking out from the right angle. It's almost stupid, the detail that they've gone to. But they've created something that GW is also, Games Workshop is also really good at doing now. Back in the old days of like when complex miniatures used to be metal, you didn't have like the depth because you had to have fill in between parts. Nowadays, we don't have to have fill because we have, additional pieces, so we can just build them up. But it's still incredible to see just the amount of complexity that goes into making these miniatures look the way they do. It always impresses me. And I do have, a little bit of grievances at the shipping situation. Certainly for me, more on a content side of things, because it's just the time scale worked out really poorly for me. But in terms of like the quality of what they have created, what Archon Studios have created with, one of our favorite games in the world, you can't fault them. They've put every ounce of effort into making these miniatures as good as any other miniature in the world. There is no competitor that can really say that these are lesser quality. They're not. They're just as good, and to be honest, better than the competition. Like, if any Archon, like any Archon, sorry, it's been a long day. My brain is a bit fragged. But if any Archon employees are watching this, just know that despite all the crazy efforts that you guys have had to go just to get this stuff out, the actual quality, the product itself is fantastic. And you all really do deserve your praises for that. This is not something that is done easily or lightly. So I understand just the effort that has been gone to make this game exist. I mean, I imagine even just getting an IP license from Blizzard is a nightmare. So very grateful that we have this product. Product is such a cold word. That this game exists, that these miniatures are existing, and that they're only going to grow and get better and better over time. Like, what a life to live that these miniatures exist. Life at the minute is, if you look at the news, the world is falling to pieces. So it's nice to have something that's a nice, happy distraction, not just, the world is turning to pot. For the first time, we're actually getting out the Citadel glue. So if you look into here, there is a little nubbin, he says, trying to find how to turn his hand. A little nubbin under that blue dot, aka just there. If I was to put the Tamiya extra thin, it's going to capillary around the sides, over the top, and it's not going to go where I want it to do. So this dispenser, the needle applicator, is perfectly situated to get that dab of glue in that little spot so that we can, adhere it without any issues. Although I have just noticed that there is a little bit of sprue gate that I need to just quickly trim. So I will get some precision. I will say, any of you that do want to do YouTube wargaming, there are a lot of people out there that are very concerned about mold lines on these miniatures, and I don't think there really is many mold lines. Nothing that is particularly crazy, but if you leave anything out, I have never seen so many people be really, really like tacked onto it. I mean, enjoy your miniatures, but yeah, just chill. Enjoy your miniatures your way. Right, we have. Let me just shift my head out of the way. We have there that finished component. Can you see the complexity and the shapes and just like the layers? Like, this is for a pylon. The amount of work that they put into this game is just, it beggars belief. But this is very clearly from a studio who cares. This isn't just, we're going to make a quick profit and leave. So anyone that thinks that StarCraft is going to be here for a year and then disappear, not a chance. This project means so much to them. It shows in the miniatures. Everything about them is just wild. I'm all in on Protoss. Can't wait to play. I like the idea of a Warhammer Forest Spirit themed Protoss. What do you think of a brown base coat with some teal, silver, and green highlights? 100%. Don't think that the decisions made by the studio who painted Artanis in that way, beautiful painted miniature, by the way, don't think that that is the only way that you can paint these minis, or that is a right way of painting it. I mean, if you want to paint an ultramarine in red, go for it. Because at the end of the day, it's a game and it's yours and it's your money and you enjoy it. So you paint them the way that makes you the happiest. For me, personally, I love the gold of Protoss. I think teal is fantastic. I mean, again, if any of you played the video game, you choose your army color on multiplayer, it completely changes like your armor panels. And teal for the campaign was always the color of like a character. So Jim Raynor in teal, to me, is like canon Jim Raynor. Phoenix in teal is, the perfect Phoenix. So I think things like that, you can 100% paint them exactly how you want. And you should do. You should never feel pressured to paint these in a certain way. Sorry, I'm shaking the camera because I'm putting my hand on the table. For me, I quite like the way that they've painted them. I don't like the non-metallic metal. I don't get on with it. Obviously, for like a showcase miniature, it's incredible, and you can see techniques of non-metallic metals where people are learning a lot, and there's a lot to learn, especially over like a full sculpture, because you're trying to figure out where the light's from and how it will adapt. And so there's lots of examples of where I don't think it looks right. For me, gold, I prefer to have like a matte metallic. Give me a second. I'll go grab Dante. Dante is the best example that I can show you. 1 minute. So this is possibly one of the easiest ways to achieve a gold. This is Warhammer Retributor armor. There is a little bit patchy in places. Don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, but this is Dante. He has all the depth to him. Again, you can go over and you can highlight it. I don't know how good it's going to look with the lighting at the minute. And certainly with my head kind of trying to distract from the camera. You can see you've got lots of depth to the shading in there. You can see like all the leg pieces, the intricacies. Just trying to make sure we keep focus with the camera. But yeah, you can see all of that detail in the armor, the abs, for instance. That technique is literally Retributor armor with Dark Oath contrast on top of it, Dark Oath flesh. It took probably the space of an hour to paint that gold, if that. It's super simple. I think the end results are really nice. And with contrast, it's a bit harder to then go back over because you have a very different color at the end of it. But if you highlight on top of or dry brush in certain circumstances on top of that color, you end up with like really nice volumetric highlights. And I think it pops on the board. Let me just catch up with some of the comments. I've never been critical about Games Workshop miniatures, especially the new orcs. Just seen the new bikes on Warhammer Community. What is your take on the Starcraft miniatures? I've not seen the new bikes yet. I have seen the new knobs. Basically, I've come home. My time, again, if any of you are just new to the video, I have about 4 hours on an evening. I do a 7-hour show day with about 3 hours worth of travel. It's quite a bit. So I'm an actor and stuff like that. So I do all sorts. But in terms of my time, I come home. I've literally quickly checked up on like the Warhammer community post. We had the email update. I've not had time to like make any videos or anything like that on it. But the knobs look really good. In terms of Starcraft miniatures compared to Warhammer miniatures, I think Archon Studios is happier taking more risks that I don't think Warhammer is. So in terms of like the most obvious is clear plastic sprues. I mean, how many of you would love to have a bolt rifle with, you know, a flash coming out and a little, you know, bolt round at the end of it? Like, everybody would want that from, you know, Games Workshop themselves, from Warhammer. They don't do it. There are companies that'll do like special effects for miniatures, but not Games Workshop directly. So when Archon came into this game, they were really happy to go the extra mile. So whilst this box set only contains, I think it's 15 miniatures. In fact, we've got it here. 7, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 miniatures, including your force fields and your sentry, projection. That doesn't show the amount of sprues that you get, because you get all of these clear plastic ones that look just so much better than, a zealot with blades that you have to paint in a certain way with a great technique to make it come to life. Like, you can, and even me, I am fully just wanting to keep on with like this clear plastic tinting. I think it looks so unique in modern wargaming. That's on a clear background, but you put that against an all black and just look at the way that that blade pops. Like, you can't get colors popping like that without like fluorescent paints. So to get that kind of technique is very difficult without having those clear plastics. So they've taken risks that we're not going to see. I don't think Warhammer is going to do anything like that in the future. The last time I remember seeing Warhammer create a clear plastic miniature, I think, was Frodo for The Lord of the Rings. And I don't think they've done anything since. Please do correct me in the comments if you remember any clear plastic miniatures from them, but I don't. And again, even when it comes to the Zealot, their arm is 3 pieces. So you have like the main body of the arm, you have the cover over the blade and the blade itself. So you have 3 components to make an arm. Look at Warhammer, it's 1 component. Well, arguably 2 because you have a shoulder pad as well. Yeah. They've gone to way more of an effort to try and make these miniatures so much better, so much more complex, and so much more to achieve that design flavor that you get with StarCraft. To have your energy shields rippling, to have your energy blades flaring, all of that costs a lot of money to design. And again, Archon Studio were absolutely the best choice for it. I think they've just smashed it out of the park. So I've just put a load of plastic glue into here, possibly a little bit too much, and I just felt a little bit on my finger. So if you start to feel like a stickiness, just remove your finger. Check it out. If you do have a fingerprint in there and you're working with Tamiya, you can use the brush and you can brush out your fingerprint. So I can just about see a little fingerprint on there, and we're just going to try and brush it out a little. Do be a little bit careful because the brush mark itself can leave in its own texture, but it'll be fainter than your fingerprint, just so you get an idea. Let me catch up on the comments, just because I feel like I'm skipping past a few. And the pylon looks phenomenal. I just genuinely can't believe. I mean, this is essentially just like a structure. It's like a terrain piece. It's not like a miniature that you necessarily even need to spend a great deal of time designing, and yet they've gone so far to make sure that it absolutely lives up to the StarCraft universe. I can't say I'm surprised. Look at what we've had since. Look at the siege tank. They went all out with that. Look at what we've had for the Immortals. The fact that the covers for the shields are like interchangeable, you could take them on and off, is perfect. That is what I want anyway. I want things to be able to be removable. Fair enough with like the Zealots, it's going to be glued onto the base. I can live with that. But with like the Stalkers, I want to be able to like take off the section that shoots and the section that doesn't. So you can have it so it's just a regular little bauble, or you can have it, I'm shooting now, I'm going to put the shooting effect on. Things like that I think would be cool. With the Immortals having like the shields on, also means that if the shields are removed, as in like in the game, you've lost your shields because you've been attacked too many times, you can take that off. Isn't that cool? Like, just, it's like a different way to just also play the game if you wanted. You don't have to, but if you wanted that extra bit of immersion, why not? Why not enjoy it? Right. We are once again just going to put in a little bit of Citadel plastic glue. He says, there we go. Although I think I need to flip the lid on that because that is starting to get a bit. Any of you that use like the Citadel plastic glues, sometimes when you flip them over, you squeeze them a little bit and loads of glue comes out. So that's a little frustrating. That's what it's doing at the minute. So it's making a bit more of a mess than it should do. Not the end of the world. Right, just clearing off some of the plastic on here. Also, there's a detail with this pylon where some of the rocks are floating because of the energy of the pylon. So you've got some really, really nice like details like that where you're going to have to paint rocks that are in midair because obviously this energy field is like an anti-grav field. Right, this is the last piece going on for our pylon. It's not a sentry. That is definitely not what this is. Okay, so let me just grab an 80mm base. I'm not going to glue it onto the base. The base is going to get painted separately so that when I glue it on, I basically don't have these pieces in my way. Let me just move it across there. So you can see on there, all of the clear blue is going to stay as such. Obviously, I've not painted the inside of it. I could paint like fluctuations and stuff like that in there just to make it pop a bit more. But again, I don't have a great deal of time. If I ever get a second one, then possibly. But, oh, nearly fell over. But in terms of the end, like, finish on there, that is just a ridiculously good miniature. Right, let me just jump back onto comments. I'm planning to add some TL to every character, just like in the game. Exactly. Like, again, the nostalgia factor from this game is bonkers. Like, I can't wait till not just getting like Phoenix, but getting the Dragoon version of Phoenix. I can't remember what he's in StarCraft 2, but he's got like a different form of mech. Yeah, all of those bits I'm really looking forward to. I'm excited for. Off the sprue, the pylon is insanely good. This game rocks. Yeah, like that really isn't that many components. It's taken me a long time because I'm back and forthing. But okay, look at that little like gap in there, and you just got that clear blue piece of plastic in there. I mean, that's like Games Workshop does not think of that, or certainly not in the miniatures that I've seen for them. So just the amount of effort and detail that they've gone to, it's awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. And this is also such an easy miniature for me to now paint as well. The end results of this are going to be really cool once you have that tarnished gold. Are you going to do a breakdown of the new Wave 2 cards once mineral gas costs are spoiled? Yeah, well, I've seen if you're on the Discord for Archon Studios, Jarek is one of the best CEOs for like this style of company where it's like it's a game, everyone's nerdy, everyone loves it, and Jarek is like so. Before the AMA, the last AMA that we had with the shipping updates and things like that and the communication problems, we were all chatting on the Discord literally an hour before the AMA. He doesn't have to answer anything. The AMA is coming up, and we're all talking about like base sizes. So someone asked what the base size is for the Immortal. And so his picture is, oh yeah, it's 100 mil. But the picture is, just imagine this pylon is the Immortal. It was literally him just going like that. So you could just see half of an Immortal in the shot. This was, in fact, it might have even been the day before, but it's like, you know, just silly little things like that. I didn't post the video of it because, again, he's posted it on his Discord. I don't want to, like, post things from Discord onto, like, YouTube. Other people can do that, but if you post, like, things before they should be seen in the AMA, for me, that's on YouTube. That's something that I'm happy to share to more masses. When it's the Discord thing, I'm still a little bit cagey with that. But I asked him if the siege tank was 160 mil, because that siege tank to me is the size of a Baneblade. It's nuts, and it's going to be. And he kept on like saying in the AMA, oh, I hope the price is okay, $79 US. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is the Baneblade like not like $180 to $200 nowadays? Like $79 for something that complex, 7 gigantic sprues that are this size. Yeah, the pricing of Archon products is, to me, crazy cheap, even though people that are more familiar with Archon products may say it's the most expensive products they've made. But if you look at those products versus something as big like Games Workshop, I think they're so well priced. So in terms of a video updating with like rules updates or like updates with mineral costs, Vespene costs for cards, it's something that I can look into. Don't get me wrong, with this channel, it's not just a painting channel or a building channel. It is more of a hobby channel, and I do want to do updates, things like that, where I'm going to be not more privy because they are a very public company and they'll release these things, but it's a bit like Warhammer community. The amount of people that play Warhammer that do not check Warhammer community, so they don't know what's coming. So everything's like a surprise for them, which is great. But when you release a video that tells people, at least then they get an idea of what's coming out. So yeah, things like that I'm happy to do for StarCraft. This month is, like I say, a bit of a bad month for it just because time is so restricted and I have 3 armies to build and paint. But going forward, and especially when we have gaps between waves, and we have, like, you know, we're obviously going to get our siege tanks, our immortals, the ravagers, and there is the new miniature for Zeratul. I'm not getting that because obviously I have 2 miniatures of Zeratul's literally sat before me. I don't need another one. But yeah, I can do update videos with maybe less so granular changes to the rules. If any of you watch like Glass Half Dead for Kill Team, he's really, really good at just going into the granular changes that have happened with every update. If there's anything major, I'm happy to cover it. If there's an additional units, I don't mind covering it. But if it's like little tiny rule changes, like I think it was Jim Raynor went up from 230 points to 250 points. That's the kind of thing that I'd be less interested in doing. But then if I do like a battle report and these changes have made a difference, maybe I'd make a mention of it then. So, right. We have completed a single miniature in... Does it tell me the time on here? No, it doesn't. The live screen on this is very different to like what I'm used to, but yeah, we've been, I think it was 6:30. It's now 9:15, so nearly 3 hours. All of you that have stuck around this long, thank you so much. Yeah, we are going to have, we'll do another one on Wednesday. I'm going to go build some of these in the background, so it might be a bit more of an update stream, but also if you are just new to StarCraft and you just want to ask questions like this, having built up some of these just on my own might be a bit nicer that we can actually just have more time to continue talking. Yeah, I'm going to go make something to eat now because I've not eaten since, I'm going to say 7:30 this morning. So yeah, I'm feeling a little hungry now. If any of you watch Kingdom Come Deliverance or play Kingdom Come Deliverance, I'm feeling a bit hungry. Yeah, I'm going to have something to eat and say hi to my fiance, who's probably wondering why I'm still streaming when I said it'd be an hour. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Again, live stream on Wednesday if I can help it. Thursday, I'm recording the 12-hour challenge of painting all of these Protoss miniatures. So the video for that will either be up. In fact, I won't say it'll be up Thursday evening. The edit for this is probably going to be about, for that 12-hour challenge, is probably going to be in the region of 4.5 to 6 hours, roughly. So 12-hour video, 4 to 6 hours of editing, talking 16 to 18 hours. Maybe if I'm really, really, really good and I remember how to record everything in a way that's really easy to piece back together, I might be able to get away with doing like a 20-minute video with like 3 input sources, possibly out for Thursday, like midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning on Friday. But chances are Friday 6 or 7 o'clock on UK time, so 7 or 8 o'clock in EU, within, like, you know, France, Germany. I think, is Poland 2 hours ahead of us? I think they might be. It might be further east. Anyway, if you're in America, I think New York time is 5 hours behind. I know LA is 8 hours behind because I work a lot with people from LA. So yeah, this has been a lot of waffle. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye for now. Right, now I need to figure out how to actually end the stream. Oh, it's right there. Ta-ra.